Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. My name is Gina Fromer, and I'm here tonight to introduce our wonderful speaker. Her name is Danisha Brazzle, and she is a business program manager at Microsoft. Danisha was born and raised in Southern California, but currently resides in Seattle, Washington. She is a second-year doctoral student at Indiana Institute of Technology, working on a PhD in global leadership. Yay! She is currently a business manager at Microsoft and has previously work experiences at the Boeing Company and Amazon. Prior to the global pandemic, she enjoyed traveling domestically and internationally and to attend Arabian horse events. Whoa, amazing. During the pandemic, she has found many home projects to focus on. We want to welcome you here this evening to talk about influencing leaders to drive work culture change. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And thank you for the opportunity to be here. So I'll start off with just a quick background on myself, educationally and professionally, and then I will take everyone through the process that I use for assessing an organization that was affected with high attrition, and how I developed an action plan and took leadership teams through that process, and share examples during the story of when it was successful and when it wasn't successful, and what I learned from that outcome. So, okay, I'll go to the next slide. So just a bit about me. As Gina mentioned, I am a doctoral student, so I have 4 more years to go. And I'm specializing in global leadership, focused on organizational management. And I have a Master's of Science in Organizational Administration, as well as a bachelor's in organizational management, and various certificates. Over on the right side with my work experience, I worked at the Boeing Company for 19 years across various functions and programs, and was able to serve as an executive coach, especially during the time when I was working on work culture, including the C-suite level. So that was exciting. And the organizations that I was supporting roughly was between about 6,500 folks to about 9,000 folks. And again, focusing in some of these roles on improving work environments, addressing high attrition, and then also benchmarking groups that happen to have a high level of employee satisfaction. After I left from Boeing, I then went to Amazon and was there for about 2 years. And I'm currently at Microsoft and plan to retire from Microsoft. So it'll be 3 years in December. So the examples that I will give will start off with Boeing and end with Microsoft, just to give you different flavors of this experience. Okay. So this is really the only slide that we have of the evening, but I'm going to take everyone through this. This was something that I developed, nothing that I had saw or had received advice on. It was just something that I had put together. And I use this slide still when trying to drive the discussion of work culture change and what that could look like. And so I break it up into different phases. I have the discovering what critical focus areas to concentrate on within days 1 to 45. Then there's a design and launch period that goes from day 46 to 70. And then we have the review and transform phase, which is day 71 and beyond, because this is an iterative process, right? Because it can always continue to be better. And so just to level set again, so I happened to be changing positions. This is within Boeing, and was I think it was my 3rd role in the company. And I wanted something different to do. And the focus of this role was to address high attrition rates. So I had never worked at this particular site at the Boeing Company. And many of you know that the Boeing Company is made up of a lot of different heritage companies. You have McDonnell Douglas, Hughes, Rockwell International, and Boeing as well, especially other companies as well. But at the time, those were the primary companies that made up Boeing. And so the site that I was going to was a Heritage Rockwell site. I had never worked there before. I didn't know anyone. So I didn't know what the work culture was like. I had worked at 2 other locations, so I had an idea, but again, coming in blind, not really being aware of what the problem was. All I was told is that there were high attrition. They didn't understand why. And again, this was in within an engineering organization. So the first thing that I did was to understand, well, what were the organization's goals? And number one, it was to increase retention within their engineering community. And so I immediately thought, well, okay, there's someone has at one point has had to say something's going on. And so I'm thinking, okay, well, next step is, now that I understand what the goals are of the organization, now I can focus on the people that are within the organization. So first thing I asked for was, can you share with me your current employee survey results as well as any prior years? Because I wanted to see the history. And I didn't just want to see the canned questions. There's like an annual survey that would go out, and it had 1 to 50 questions, strongly agree to strongly disagree. But then I wanted to see like the meat, which were the written comments. What were the employees saying? And so I was able to get all of that data. I also asked for, well, what have you done in the past? Employees take the time to fill out a survey. Well, what are you doing with that? So what have you done about that in the past? So I asked for them to provide that to me. In addition, I tried to gather any other additional data I could get. If there were exit interviews conducted, I wanted that. I wanted to see what the trend of attrition rates were, and then also employee demographics. What were the employees like at that particular site? Was it made up of mainly, say, college hires? Were they more tenured employees? Were they transfers from, different sites? Were they new? So just really trying to understand the employees that were there, and again, try to digest which were the employees that were leaving and why. And so I thought, in order to do that, not just looking at data, I also needed to have conversations with those that were there. And so I hosted employee chats separately from manager chats. And what I found really interesting with those, and I think it helped by doing that, keeping both audiences separate, is because it allowed me to establish a certain level of trust with the employees. And right off the bat, the way I would introduce myself was, hi, I'm here because your engineering leadership team understands that it's not perfect here and they want to fix that. And so they've hired me to come in and find that out. And as soon as, as I would tell them that that's my job, it would change the whole dynamic. And I mean, I couldn't write fast enough of all of the things that people shared that they felt were wrong. And I just allowed them to do that. And when they were finished, I would have, I think, no more than 15 people per session. And when they were done, I would say, okay, thank you for sharing. Now I'm giving you a magic wand. If you can improve things, what would you do? And I would also document that as well. Because again, I'm thinking, okay, I have all this data that I need to go back to the leadership team and say, it's not just me making these recommendations. This is also coming directly from your employees of what they would like to see. And so that's what I did. And one of the great things too was word started to get around of, hey, the leaders hired someone to come in and try and fix things around here. You should go talk to her. So as opposed to me having to tap folks on the shoulder, hey, can I talk to you? People were coming to me freely, which was great, because, you know, they had those feedback mechanisms in place where someone could write a comment in a box. No one was writing a comment in the box. You'd find trash in the box. No one was actually leaving anything. So it helped for them to have a live person whose sole position was to focus on this. So after I also share with them what was done in the past, because I wanted to understand how effective they thought some of the efforts that the leadership team had put in place was for them. And and that also would help me to figure out how to best design what the new program could look like. So next we move over into the analyze and plan phase. And so again, I'm taking all of the data, whether it was in the employee chats or just, you know, as I mentioned, the surveys, prior people plans, any additional data I could get, and I would identify the critical focus areas. So I just mentioned just a few here. Some there were issues with how people onboarded, whether they were transferring in from a new site or whether they were a new hire to the company. Sometimes it was employee engagement, awards and recognition, communication, diversity and inclusion. And I also thought, okay, well, so these will be my focus areas. I need to identify and or develop some training that I would recommend for the managers. Because in my mind, a lot of what I read, a lot of what I heard, it did fall back on the management team. And I'll give you an example, just using with communication. I wind up having to develop a checklist for staff meetings. I found out that some managers just were not having staff meetings whatsoever. And it was because they didn't know how, which was surprising to me because I'm thinking, wow, hasn't everyone sat in the staff meeting? So I put together a checklist that says you should be meeting with your employees at a minimum of every other week. And these are topics that you can cover in your staff meeting, and provided that to the leaders. So again, that helped to address communication. And so, like I said, I created the action plans, identified some training. In some instances, I developed the training myself and would hold lunch and learns for about an hour. And I had like a role playing aspect in it. So that way the leaders can actually practice what they were learning. And one of the things that I really appreciate with these leaders was that they were actively listening to what I had to say and considered me a subject matter expert. And so they were willing to try what I was willing to tell them. So it was great from that perspective. And I took advantage of that and would start off the training telling them, we're here today because of you. It's like very matter of fact. You are the problem, but you're also the solution. And so I didn't sugarcoat it at all, but I made it a positive by saying, you know, again, you are the solution. And guess what? I'm here to help you. You're not in this by yourself. And again, that also created quite a bit of trust with myself and those leaders. So that was fantastic. And it worked as well, having them to practice what I was teaching them in those segments. And I would receive feedback that, oh, this is great. I feel like I can do this. I'm going to go back to my team and I'm going to utilize these skills. So again, very, very positive. Everyone was very positive. So that's a win for everyone. So I shared the plans that I put together and the anonymous feedback that I received back to the senior LT. And one of the great things was when I first went into this role, I think I was there maybe a week longer than the VP that had came in. So here he inherited a site of, or 3 sites actually, with 6,500 employees. So he didn't know what he was getting into. He was also brand new to the site. He had worked for a different heritage company. So he was coming from McDonnell Douglas, and he had no idea of what he had just inherited. So it was a learning opportunity for the both of us. And so once I told him that I had completed my analysis, he invited me to attend an offsite that he was having with the senior leadership team. And he gave me an hour and a half on his agenda to present to them what this data was. And what I loved about it was when I finished, he looked around the table at his LT and said, okay, who's signing up for what? Because we're doing everything that she just proposed. And which I wasn't expecting that. I thought I put a lot of time into this. I really feel like this is going to work. I'm really passionate about it. And, you know, I shared with them with all the inputs that I got. This is not just, you know, my grand idea, that it was also the employees that were excited about this as well. And so the fact that he supported just this overall plan was just amazing. I didn't realize until later on in my experiences that it was also rare, but I just appreciate that that was the stance that he took. And so, so like I said, some of his leaders did sign up for different initiatives, some more than others. And so I then worked side by side with them, also identified people within their organization that I could also work with. And so that then brought us to the pilot launch phase, where I looked at developing what does success look like. If we create an initiative, say it's around awards and recognition, what does success look like? Is it say if it's a peer nominated, is it based on the number of nominations that we receive? Is it comments that people tell us after receiving it? Like, you know, what was it that says that this was successful? And then also established manager and employee feedback channels. Again, it's like you don't want to implement something and then people think, oh, that's just the flavor of the month, or they don't participate at all, or they think it could be done better. It's always making sure to have those communication channels open, to always look to improve. And then it was also piloting new programs around those critical focus areas. So one of the things, again, being say around communication, I had proposed that we put flat panel monitors at the front and back of every building, because some employees would say, I park my car, I walk in, I sit at my desk, I eat my lunch, I go to meetings, I go back to my car and I go home. And then they find out a week later that there was a Cinco de Mayo festival that was going on the main campus that they missed, or just some type of activity that was going on. People were missing out on them. And so the idea was to have a streaming loop of all the things that were going on campus. So as people are coming and going from building to building to go to a meeting or whatnot, they can know what's going on and be able to participate. So that was, again, just an example. Some of the other things I created were recognition programs. There were some that were manager nominated, some that were peer nominated, some that were based on cost savings. So that's something that the company also gets a chance to benefit from. And others were just, you know, someone displayed, you know, the right leadership skill at a certain time, or leadership principle, excuse me. And so just wanting to show appreciation for that. And then it was also about not reinventing the wheel and just perhaps refreshing existing programs that were in place. There was a mentoring program that no one was really managing anymore. And so some of the attrition was with those that were in their first 0 to 5 years of joining the company. And so I refreshed that program by pairing engineers that were newly hired to those that were more senior, one, to create a knowledge transfer program. So as someone is looking to retire, there's someone there that would have that knowledge to carry on with. And then also there was a program I put in place that would link those that were the new hires within their first 0 to 5 years with someone else in a different engineering function. So if they got in and saw, well, this isn't what I thought it would be, well, now you have someone that could potentially be having the same experience, or just having someone to work with that could relate. And I know even for myself, when I first joined Boeing, I worked with people that were my parents' age, and my parents worked at the company. So I felt like I had a lot of parents around me. So I was able to empathize with them that you're sitting in meetings with people. You're supposed to be helping to make decisions or help drive towards a goal. And you have this dynamic of, can I speak up? Can I do these things? Because of how the relationship was with their parents. So it really helped for me to pair them together and say, oh, well, so-and-so is a new hire too. So they can at least have someone within their own generation to be able to share just experiences that they were having. And then in some instances, I had to create resources, or again, share resources. And so like what I mentioned about the staff meetings, having to create that very basic checklist, but it was necessary. And so then over to the Pulse and Discover phase. So I hosted employee chats and manager chats again, because now that we've piloted and launched some different programs, I wanted to check in and make sure, does this meet the mark? I gave you the magic wand. Do you see improvement? And then also by some time had passed, another employee survey had came out. And so that was, again, another data point to be able to compare from one year to the next. And then constantly giving this feedback back to the manager so they know this is what's going on, there's improvement here. And it was also expanding on those piloted programs. Was there enough interest to continue on and expand it? And some programs were leveraged not just within engineering, but were able to go to other functions as well, finance, HR, to communications. And I also kept looking for new opportunities. I wanted to make sure I was benchmarking other Boeing locations. Are they doing something that we should be doing over here? And even external to Boeing, because I had friends that worked at other multinational corporations. And so I wanted to know, well, what is it that you're doing over there? And then also looking for perhaps any new training opportunities that would come up that I thought members could take advantage of. And then based on that, create new programs and launch those as needed. And so again, I mentioned going through this entire process, then having another employee survey to come out, and then hearing, the feedback from employees for this specific job. When you compare apples to apples, there was a significant increase in employee satisfaction and a great reduction in the attrition rates, which was the primary reason why they had hired someone to come into this position. And so it went so well that I happened to be contacted by another engineering division in Boeing, and this was Heritage Hughes location. And they had the same thing, another problem with attrition, but it was different as opposed to the other site where it was within the first 0 to 5 years of those new employees. At this particular site, it was just proximity to a competitor. And so the employees were playing the salary game. And the buildings were so close that they shared a parking structure. And you can literally park in that spot on Friday, and you're working for Boeing, quit, because now you have a job offer at the other company, park in that same spot on Monday and walk into the building across the way. And people were doing that. They were playing the salary game where they were just going back and forth from company to company. So having established this process and having seen that it worked, I'm thinking, well, why not? Why not do it again? What are the goals of the organization? What are employees saying? Why are they leaving? What has been done in the past? Give me all the additional data. So I literally went through the entire process again. I did the employee chats, the manager chats. I gave everyone their magic wand. And again, I happened to deal with another leadership team that was very receptive of, hey, we're engineers. We don't know this stuff. That's, that's why we're hiring you to do it. So again, very receptive to the programs that I proposed, the initiatives that I proposed. And so after I did that for some time, got another tap on the shoulder, this time from HR saying, wait a minute, we've seen what's happened within 2 engineering organizations, and you don't even work for HR. We want you to come over here and do the same thing, but we need you to do it at the corporate level. So here's the CFO and his information. Here's our chief government officer, and here's his information. And I did the exact same thing. I ran the exact same process. And that was a little different because as opposed to it just being one particular location, these were global teams. And that was the first time that I was exposed to global teams. So even though this was still the framework that I took, I did have to do things a little different because now I'm having to accommodate for time zones. I'm having to accommodate for lack of technology, even because there were things that we had here in the United States that people in other countries weren't privy to. And so, and then there were also limitations too, to some of the things that I could and could not do depending on the country. So, so again, it was pretty much the same framework, but having to kind of pull it up a level to recognize, well, I can't necessarily do the same things. We can't necessarily have the same awards and recognition, or employee engagement looks different, onboarding looks different, communication looks different. So I tried to be cognizant of that with creating programs. And again, working with leaders that were just so receptive to the information that I shared. And kudos to the finance organization at that time. They had a phenomenal, the CFO, James Bell at that time, phenomenal leader. And he already had a lot of good things. And, I had benchmarked a lot of what finance was doing to bring over to the engineering organization, because it was just, I had never seen some of the things that they were doing before, which was just fantastic, just really focused on career development and employee engagement, awards and recognition. So in my mind, that challenge of, wow, it's really good. How can you make this better? And that's why I think the key of doing the employee chats and the manager chats were so important, because again, it's not me and my preconceived notions, but you're actually hearing the voice of the employee saying, yes, but it's great here, but. So having that information was imperative. So then I started doing other positions within Boeing. Again, great company to be able to have different opportunities to do different things. And I did that. And then I transferred to Boeing here in Washington and realized just all the other opportunities that I had out here, and left from there and went to Amazon. Didn't have an opportunity to provide this framework just because of the job that I worked in, which was their fraud organization. But when I came to Microsoft in my second role here at Microsoft, there was an opportunity, and the employee survey results had just been released. And this particular group I was in, it was my start of my second year, and I'm thinking, well, I've been here for a year. What did they do with the results from the year before? I had no clue. I honestly just sat and thought, what did they do? I'm searching in my email and I'm thinking, I don't think they did anything. I wasn't sure. And so in a town hall meeting that we were in, they said, oh yeah, the survey results are in, and leadership team, we're going to digest through the results and we'll get back to you. And so immediately after the meeting, I raised my hand and I said, hey, by the way, yes, it's completely outside of what I do day to day, but I do have a lot of experience in this professionally as well as academically. And I would like to help you all with, the analysis and perhaps developing action plans. And so initially it's like, okay, we'll let you know, we'll get back to you. And I think maybe 3 weeks went by and like, oh, okay, well, here are the survey results. And I'm thinking, oh, okay, you do want me to do this. All right. And so I asked for the written comments. Oh, nope, we can't do that. There's names in there. Nope, we can't do that. So that was the first inkling of, okay, this is going to be a little bit more difficult, because before people were free with it. They removed the name, so it wasn't a big deal. And that was my job anyway, was to read through it, figure out what's going on and make things better. And so the situation was different here. And so I worked with what they gave me. I asked for, the additional data, the exit interviews, attrition rates. I didn't get any of that, but trying to stick to the framework, because again, I know it worked. I did host the employee chats, which was great. About half of the organization participated, which again, phenomenal. And people were also hopeful. But it was interesting in this instance, they said, well, I hope you're not going to be making up any plans. And I'm thinking, uh-oh, that's what I'm really good at, is, making up these action plans for leaders to go do. Nope, we want the leaders to own this. They should be coming up with the plans. And I'm thinking, oh, okay. And I'm a person that likes to meet leaders where they are. And in this instance, I felt like I needed to help them create the plans. Again, because I hadn't seen anything happen the year before. And I'm thinking, okay, they probably could use this assistance here. So knowing that, I had to scale back. Unfortunately, a peer of mine, she also had experience with improving work cultures. And so we paired up together, and I shared this framework with her and told her, I did this over several years while I was at Boeing, was very effective. The leadership team was very receptive. And, you can prove statistically, like there was a change. And even just the employees, I remember one day, and sorry to backtrack to Boeing, but I forgot to share. I remember hearing in the hallway one day, someone said, oh, did you see? We got new trash receptacles. Someone must have mentioned it on the employee survey. And that made me feel so good, because every communication that went out, it started off with, you said this, we did that. So it was very matter of fact that all these wonderful things that were occurring was because they spoke up and the leadership team actioned on it. And so it was great to hear. And that wasn't one of the things that was a result of the employee survey. But if someone thought that they were listened to and there were new trash receptacles, then that's a good thing. So again, so having that experience and then coming to this this situation was interesting, because it was very different. So again, took that information from the employee chats and then shared that with the leadership team. And I got resistance right away. What do you mean? Of just not acknowledging the fact that things could be better. And so, again, I wanted to make sure that they knew this isn't just my view. This is the entire, or at least half of the organization. So the majority of your organization is saying this, I'm presenting this to you. And this is the recommendation. And again, just my peer and I just continue to get resistance. And at that point, I looked inward and was thinking, okay, what am I doing wrong? I would consider myself a subject matter expert in this. I have the work experience. I have the academic background to back me up on this. And I'm being challenged, right? And so it was a great wake up call for me and made me realize I have to meet them where they are. And where they are is not in a place to receive this information from a subordinate. I'm not being viewed as the subject matter expert that I think I am. And I have to accept that and get over it, right? Because again, at the end of the day, it's not about me. I volunteered because I care and I know that there could be improvement and I want to help to drive that change so I can remain here myself and be happy. And fortunately, around that time, I think it was probably the third time that my peer and I had went to our leadership team, that they were bringing another director on board. And this actually fit within his remit, which was perfect. And so I think like one of the first meetings that he attended was the meeting that my peer and I were hosting with the leadership team to say, this is what we think the people plan should be. This is what we're recommending should be your focus areas. And again, he saw for himself that they weren't receiving the message from us. And so at that time, my peer and I made the decision collectively that we would turn this over to him. And because, he's newly hired and this fits into his responsibilities. And he ran with it. He was extremely receptive, and it worked from that perspective of he is executing the plan that we initiated, and he's added so much more to it. And that really made the difference. And again, it made me check myself of, yeah, some others might think you're a subject matter expert. You might toot your own horn and think you are too. But again, it's about meeting people where they're at. And if the message is not getting through, thinking about, well, what's the bottom line? What is the ultimate outcome here? And again, it is, let's drive for improvement. Let's make the work culture better. And how does that get done? Shouldn't matter who's delivering the message. It's what can we do to make things better? And so again, that's where we are now. Is this leader is still pushing the focus areas in the programs underneath them and adding to it. And now you could see a genuine difference within the leadership team. They're actively looking to do more, and they're even doing things on their own above and beyond what we had recommended. So again, it was that realization of it doesn't matter who the messenger is. It's the fact that you have the LT actively working to make those improvements, and the employees are able to see it as well. So that's all that I have to share, and I'm open for questions.
Thank you so much for sharing this. I'll tell you, I mean, I worked for one company for about 15 years, and they had similar concept of doing an annual survey, which was like about 60 to 90 questions. And I never heard about it later. I mean, for 15 years, I really never did. This new company I'm working for, is I work for Comcast now, and I've been here 6 years, and great work. They started doing ENPS surveys, and it's regular. Every other month we have survey. So we, as a leader, I get to talk to my team. We talk about the survey results. We put an action plan together. We talk about what we need to do. How can as a leader help you get to the next stage, right? I mean, and it's simple question. It's 4 questions. um, tell about your workplace, motivation, product, and when the results are low, right, we get to talk about it. We have to put an action plan together to say, what can we do? I mean, what can I do? So I had my ENPS meeting with my team today because my results were not low, but they were lower than previous 2 months ago. And so they gave me some thoughts, they gave me some ideas. So tomorrow I have leadership meeting with my leader, and we're going to talk about it and things we can put in action together, because it's, I feel like sometimes it's not about, it's those little things, like the example you gave, hey, the trash can, right? Those little things, right? And
Yes.
in grand scheme of things, it's not a big deal, but those little things definitely help. Like when I worked in a retail, one of the things teams had asked was, hey, when we get to the store, we don't have coffee, right? We have to go to Starbucks to run, and that takes away about 15-20 minutes of our time, right? So we got coffee machine in the store. So every employee or on any of our location, we have coffee machine, and we supply coffee cups. So it's on every week they come and refill it, right? So just simple as just bringing coffee, it doesn't cost that much. As a
Right.
company, that's a very small amount, but it definitely helps the employee morale big time,
Yep.
big
Absolutely.
time, right?
Absolutely.
So yeah, and so I was gonna ask, like when you go into a company, and again, your first example was a great example where you had to sit down and analyze and figure out what needs to happen, and you were lucky that the senior leadership was um, willing to take your suggestions,
Yep.
right? And sometimes that's hard. The first step you take, I mean, how do the employees take that? Like I know you had a good experience, but you probably had a lot of bad experience with that particular step as well, correct?
With the employees, I did not. I can't, and I think it's kind of like my theory with surveys. The people that really want you to know what they think about something will participate. And so I didn't have any pushback, again, because the way I introduced myself was, hi, leadership team knows that there's a problem here. So they hired me to fix it. Come talk to me. And it opened the floodgates by doing that, because as opposed to people having sidebar conversations, talking under their breaths, and chats to one another, being frustrated, it's like, oh, you're here to fix things, well, let me tell you something. And it was great that they were willing to do that, and they saw, it's like, oh wow, she's really writing everything down. I didn't write any names down, but they saw that the leadership team really cared enough to employ a full-time person. And again, I was already an employee of the company. So again, I have my own experiences, and I didn't make it about, oh, they want to try this out. No, it's very matter of fact. They recognize that there is a problem. They're seeing, that they have high attrition and they need to fix it. And they've recognized the fact that we are focused on, innovation. We're engineers, we're innovating here. We don't have time to figure out, this people stuff that's going on. We just don't, but we want to bring someone in to focus on that. And I really feel that by introducing it that way, you had employees to come and say, okay, well, I'll tell you what's going on. And like I said, one employee would then tell another employee, and I would get contact saying, hey, I have something I want to tell you too. So I can't say that I've ever had any opposition from any employees ever.
Yeah, that's really good to hear. I mean, a lot of companies don't do that. I mean, maybe they do it now, but a lot of companies don't do that.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's good to kind of ask those questions, and it doesn't have to be huge questionnaire, like just one or two questions, simple questions, get some feedback, give them some space to write it down, make
Right.
sure it's anonymous, right? Because
Right.
sometimes those are, I mean, people have fear of retaliation, right?
Absolutely.
And I know we all say, all the companies say, oh, there's going to be no retaliation,
Mhm.
but I mean, people still have fear about it.
That's true. That's true.
So
And yeah, so it is amazing from that perspective when you think about it that I didn't run into that, which again was fortunate for me because it made it that much easier to be able to, understand from them how they were feeling and for them to participate in this process. They didn't bring in some consulting firm that knows zero about even how the company operates and just says, go do this, go do this. No, I'm an employee of the company, just like they are. I've had X number of years of experience, and I'm able to say, here your LT wants to make things better. Here's your opportunity to do it. And that's kind of like me. If I'm not happy with something, I'm not just going to complain about it. I'm going to try and fix it. And so they had that same attitude about it as well. And me saying, hey, I don't want to guess of what I think is going on. So here's the data for you to look at. This is what I'm thinking. Am I right? Am I missing something? And again, I think by allowing them that opportunity to participate in shaping what the new could look like, I think is why it was always so positive.
awesome. We have a question in the chat.
Sure.
What is your biggest learning and advice you would give to someone entering into this kind of analysis?
I would say it's to focus on the data itself. I try to not bring my past experiences into it. I wanted to just have a blank mind and just look at what I was reading and not try and read too much into it. I initially was just looking for trends. I would see, say, in the written comments where someone was saying, I don't know who my skip level manager is. If I start seeing that quite a bit, okay, well, then there's a disconnect that people don't even know where they fit into an organization. So I'm looking at that trend. And then I'm thinking, well, what can you do to fix that? And then I'd go on to the next issue. Half of the building is 60 degrees. When I go to meetings in the other half of the building, it's 80 degrees. Okay, well, that's a facilities issue. So again, I'm trying to focus on the data. I'm trying to focus on what the trends are. And if it's said enough times, then it needs to get fixed. It definitely needs to get addressed. So with those written comments, I had created a Pareto chart. During that time, the vendor that Boeing was using, they didn't categorize the comments. It would just be like a list of comments. So I had to, actually go through it, create the category, and then readjust the names of the categories. So it took some time. That analysis for about 6,500 people took me a solid 3 weeks to go through all of the data and to start crafting the action plan. And so again, I think it's just focus on what is the data telling you. And then for me, again, it was creating those categories. And then I could create a Pareto chart to say, okay, these are the top 10 issues that employees are having. Let's go fix these. And it was just, I think, a lot easier to digest and identify what the big wins could be because I looked at what the trends were.
Awesome. Well,
Yep.
thank you so much.
Yep.
We don't have any more questions in chat,
Okay.
but we really appreciate you doing this for us. So thank you, thank you, thank
Thank you for
you.
having me.
And everyone, we will, our next speaker session will be resuming in January. So we will talk to you all later. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye.